You see, what you can't help but have is a view of God. Everybody does. The question is not whether you have a view of God, it's which view of God do you have. Everybody has a worldview. Everybody believes that God's nature and God's activity is something. And so what are these different worldviews? Well, I think there's many that this confronts. In fact, I'm going to actually give you 10 worldviews that exist right now in our culture that people that you work with, have in your family, maybe even in this room, tote around with you, that Genesis 31 absolutely annihilates. Right? Deism is the worldview that says God wound up the universe and he walked away. He set it up like a clock, right? God made the world and then he's just upstairs watching it like, man, look at it go. The second thing that this blows up is fatalism or stoic determinism, you could say, which is just the idea that everything is impersonal and it's going according to a fixed script. What about karma? That's another one. People love to talk about karma. I've even heard Christians talk about karma. Here's the issue. There is a principle of reaping and sowing. We talked about that a few weeks ago. But reaping and sowing is a principle that God established in the world, and he's the one upholding it. Here's what karma says. Karma views things that happen as blind force. There is a blind force that exists in the world, and it's dishing out good or bad based on what we do. It also annihilates materialistic naturalism, which just insists nothing exists beyond matter and chance. Right? It's just a physical world and things just happening by chance. There's no rhyme or reason. Pantheism that views God as an impersonal force fused into everything. Here's the best way to think about pantheism. Everything is God. Right? Everything is God. So everything created is God. Water is God. Trees are God. Everything is God. Polytheism is a view of multiple gods. The worship of multiple. The prosperity gospel is another theology that people have of God today. Equates God's presence with nonstop comfort and What about open theism or process theology? What does that mean? It's the idea that God is learning or discovering as events unfold. What about expressive individualism? We've talked about that a lot here. That is a theology that essentially proclaims that I'm the author of my own destiny. The last one is moralistic therapeutic deism. This is the most American theology that we have. You say, what is that? It treats God as a life coach who shows up when invited. He's here to make you a little bit of a better person, right? God's here to improve your life. He's a good coach. All of these different ideologies are ideologies that we have to be aware of, because if we're not careful, as Colossians 2 says, we could be taken captive by them. Instead, what we see in this story is the God who is sovereign yet near, the God who is all-powerful and yet comes close. He is the God who is with us always. All of these modern worldviews collapse under the reality of the God who actually is in Scripture.